Hello students, in this video as you can see here we are going to talk about your organelle which is called as nucleus, right? We are going to talk about the organelle called as nucleus, and you all are familiar that nucleus was first discovered by Robert Brown. You all know that, right? Nucleus was first discovered by Robert Brown, or we must say that it was first observed by Robert Brown. So when you talk about the structure of nucleus, so nucleus is a double membraned organelle, right? Nucleus is containing two membrane, right? And it also contains the genetic material, that is what we called as DNA and RNA, right? So when we talk about the full form of DNA, that is deoxy, right, ribonucleic acid, whereas ribonucleic acid means the RNA. They contains the information regarding a person's inheritance, right? They contains the detail about a person's inheritance, means it will control that how we will look, right? What sort of protein should be made in our body, how the organs will be made in our body, how the different functions are to be carried in our body. Everything is going to be under the influence of DNA and RNA, right? So as you move further, we are going to talk about the structure of nucleus, right? So here the nucleus is double layered. So here we have the two layers, the outer membrane and the inner membrane, right? So here you can see the nuclear membranes, right? Nuclear membrane, they have small pores onto them, right? They have small pores onto them. So these pores are important for the transfer of material from the cytoplasm of the cell to the nucleoplasm, and from the nucleoplasm to the cytoplasm, right? So why this happen is, so this is your DNA, right? Here you have this material, that is your genetic material. It is your genetic material here, right? This is your genetic material, right, which is loosely found in the nucleoplasm. This genetic material will form your chromosomes, and from the DNA or whatever the thing it is there, it is to be exported out of the cell whenever it is required. So it is to be transferred through these pores, right? So as we move forward, now let's see this nucleoplasm, the inner and closed liquid jelly-like structure, it is called as the nucleoplasm. And nucleoplasm have the genetic material, that is your DNA or RNA. And when we talk about this region, the dense shaded region here, it is what we call as nucleolus. And this nucleolus is important for the formation of ribosomes, right? They are important for the formation of something called as ribosomes, right? So now when I talk about based on the type of nucleus, right, we will talk about the function a bit later, but based on the type of nucleus, right, here based on the type of nucleus, or we might say in another language, we might say based on the development of nucleus, right? Based on the development of the nucleus, we might say there are two types of cells. One is called as prokaryotes, right, and another is called as eukaryotes or eukaryotes. Now here the word karyote means nucleus, right? The word karyotes means nucleus, right? Karyote means nucleus, right? So pro means, here the word pro means primitive, primitive, Primitive means primary or not well developed, whereas eukaryotes, they have a completely well developed nucleus. So based on the type of nucleus or development of the nucleus, right, you can divide the whole complete organisms on the two types, that is prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, right. You have two types of cells here. Prokaryotic cells which do not have a well defined, these prokaryotic cells, they do not have nuclear membrane, right. The nuclear membrane is not present in this prokaryotes, but we will talk about the prokaryotes and eukaryotes and their difference in the later part of any other videos. But for right now, in this video, we are only going to talk about the nucleus. So based on the development and the type of nucleus, you have two types of cell, that is prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now let's move to the functions of nucleus, right. The functions of nucleus. So as we know, or as I have said, that it contains the DNA, right. It contains the DNA, therefore it will control the cell growth. It will control the cell's growth, right. It will control the cell growth. Second, it can even control the reproduction of an organism. It can control the reproduction of an organism, right. Because whenever there is a reproduction, during that time there is a formation of cells, right. So each cell should have enough amount of your DNA. So that division, the cell reproduction and everything, it is related with that of the nucleus. But as you move forward, right, as we move forward, we know that it has DNA, that is called as deoxyribonucleic, right, nucleic acid, right. This is the full form of your DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid. And here you have some small location, right, on DNA, right. On DNA you have some location called as genes, right. They are called as genes. These genes are some location on your DNA which will form the proteins. These DNA will have genes, and these genes will form the proteins, and these proteins can be helpful for us for the growth, development, or any other process in our body. So therefore the DNA will also regulate the protein formation, which is responsible for the cell growth, cell development. So genes are called as the unit of inheritance. Please keep in mind, right, please keep in mind whenever we are talking about the genes, right. Whenever we are talking about the genes are called as the unit of inheritance. Inheritance means they are the smallest unit of the DNA which are capable of forming the proteins, and these proteins are responsible for different functions. Even these genes are responsible to carry the information, right. Have you any time noticed that you look as similar as that of your parents? We have some features which are similar to our parents, either mom, that is maybe if your father is heighted, you are also having that same kind of features, the face features, some or the other way, and even you are just having the same morphology. Morphology means the structure. They have two hands, you have two hands, legs, right, two legs. You have the whole complete message, or how you are going to look, what functions are to be done, which hormones, which glands, and everything are to be made. Everything are to be controlled by these genes. So therefore they are called as the unit of your inheritance. They are called as the unit of the inheritance, right. So I hope you have understand that why the genes are called as the unit of inheritance. right? And apart from that, the first and the foremost thing, it is possible to duplicate one's DNA, right? So even this DNA which is there in the nucleus, right, the DNA which is there in the nucleus, it had the capacity to duplicate, right? Duplicate means double. It can double itself. So whenever a cell divides, right, let's take an example, okay, whenever a cell divides, it has one nucleus, right? So before the cell division, this nucleus will be equally this nucleus will duplicate means it will create two copies, right? And it will divide. So now there will be two nucleus, and once the cell is ready to get divided, each and every nucleus or each and every part of the DNA will be given to the new daughter cells. So equal distribution of DNA or the nucleus will be there in the new daughter cell. So they have the capacity to duplicate, they have the capacity to produce a exact same copy of the DNA, right? So this is what we have to understand here, right? And the central role here is that DNA is always children, it is very important for you to understand that when we talk about DNA is capable of forming RNA, and this RNA will have the messages. What they will have? They will have the messages, right? And these messages will help in the formation of protein, and this protein will help in the growth, right, in the development, right, in the development, growth, development, repairing of the damaged part of the body, right? So they have different functions which is to be followed. So this is the way, right? The nucleus is considered to be as the center of the cell, and they are readily regulating, right? Through the DNA they are regulating our different process to be carried. And this DNA, right, DNA are usually formed in the loosed form. Loosed means they are in the thread forms, right? They are in the loose thread forms. So this loose thread forms can condense. Condense means they can contract, they can compress, right? They contract, right, to form chromatin, right? They contract to form chromatin, right? They will form small chromatin fibers, and these chromatins will form the chromosomes. They will form the chromosomes. They will form the chromosomes, which you can see during the cell division, right? So this is what the thing you can see here, right? This is what the thing you can see here, right? So it was a very loosely formed DNA which condensed to form a complete chromatin, and this chromatins, right, two homologous chromatin. Homologous means two similar chromatins will come together, joint from the center. They will form a chromosome. So this is what you have, a chromosome. So it travels from a loosely packed form to a contracted or a completely compressed form, and these compressed forms will combine together to form a chromosome, and these chromosomes are visible whenever it comes to the cell division. So this is the basic function of your nucleus, right? This is the basic function of your nucleus, and this is the function of your DNA and your genetic material. And I hope that I am clear here, and if you have any doubt, please you can mention me. Thank you.